About 42. Northwest winds could gust to 50 miles an hour. We do have a wind advisory posted. Overnight, mostly clear, windy and cold. Temperatures by morning falling back into the upper 20s. Wind chill temperatures in the teens. And for tomorrow, sun clouds, still breezy, a little bit milder, 45 to 50. Thursday, a mixture of sun clouds, low 50s. It could be turning wet here by Thursday night. Certainly stay tuned. On the Money Matters Radio Network, I'm Mark Rosenthal.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular and get your second month free for a limited time. You'll get the same fast, reliable nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month. Here's Veronica and Jackie, real customers.
I didn't know that I could get something for a lot less money that was actually better than who I was with before.
Anytime anybody complains about their cell phone bill, we say, you've got to check out Consumer Cellular.
And now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free when they use promo code SECONDFREE. Just call, click, or bring us your bill and see how much you can save. Because when it comes to big wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and use code SECONDFREE to get a free second month. Real people paid to share their opinions in this ad. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
You're tuned in to Money Matters Boston, 1120 AM WBNW. This is WBNW 1120 AM, the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange quick tip of the day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, how can you ensure that your kids' inheritance can be protected from future divorces?
Well, estate planning, as you know, does things like avoid probate, protect assets from nursing homes, and reduce taxes. But you know what? The family behind the estate plan can be more important. And so the trusts live on after you die, and you can have language in there that divides the assets to the children, but doesn't just pay it out, right? It holds it in trust for them and allows them to be trustee, but just not take it. In order to get it, they have an independent trustee that can say yes or no. And that way, by not owning the asset, if they get divorced down the line after you're dead and the other side says, hey, I want half of what's in that trust, you're going to say, that's great, but you have to ask the independent trustee. So it's now not going to be available to you. And more than just the ability to say no, it's the fact that you don't own it. So if you don't own it, it's not a marital asset to begin with. So it should not be even subject to the divorce. So learning how your trust works after you die can oftentimes be more important than when you're living. And it does more for you after you die than when you're living sometimes.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's an interesting feature of volatility, is that it does tend to move in both directions, and we're sure getting that today. Markets are ripping higher in early trading today after... What do you call yesterday? A seesaw? It was more than a seesaw. It was a big move yesterday. We'll talk about that as well. But our first story of the day has to continue to be about markets, which have been just all over the place. The S&P 500 yesterday briefly fell into bear market territory before rallying some... What did we do? Like rally 8% into midday? I believe the statistic that I saw was that the price movements on the S&P 500 yesterday alone was more substantial than what you saw for the 5-month time period from October through February. So you saw more price movement in stocks yesterday than you did for the entire 5-month period surrounding October through February, which, again, just gives you a sense of the volatility that was out there. Trade volumes were through the roof. Multiple investment firms disclosed that they saw record-breaking transaction volume in trading yesterday. And today, at least, so far at least, because recall that yesterday at around 10 to 10:30 a.m., somewhere in that time frame, we saw markets up substantially. But today, the Dow is up 1,300 points, 3.5%. S&P up 182, 3.6%. And the NASDAQ early trading up 639 points, or about 4%. As we've been doing the last several days, I just want to remind everybody of the text line, 617-362-1385. You can text in questions there. Tucker, what's the email address for the show if people prefer?
Don't worry about it. It's a whole thing. You can go to financialexchangeshow.com and
you can
you'll,
submit a question there.
I have just a ridiculously long email, so it's not worth it.
Got it. So you can submit a question there, but we'll be diving into questions throughout the show today. I'm sure. I think we got 8 or 9 of them yesterday during the show and had a few come in after. So we'll be diving in here and there. We don't get into specific securities or anything like that, or we really can't do that on air because we don't know you particularly. But we will be trying to respond to some of this stuff throughout the show. But so far in early trading, some optimism in markets, and there's some rumors out there. There's some news out there in terms of what happens next, but there's nothing really firm, I think, that you can point to say, oh, here's what's moving markets higher. I think this is more just a feature of, hey, when you have all of this extreme fear burn through markets so rapidly like you did. If you missed yesterday's show, the downturn that you saw on Thursday and Friday combined, that 10% downturn on the S&P 500, was the largest downturn that we have seen in some 50 years on the stock market, other than 3 occasions. There were 3 times.
2020's got to be one of those.
2020 was one of them. You got another guess?
08.
08 was the second one. The third one was
.com?
No, 80s.
87?
Black Monday.
Black Monday.
87.
Yeah.
So those were the 3 occasions where you had 2-day downturns more severe than what we saw on Thursday and Friday of last week. And so there's a lot been out there like, oh, this is normal. Markets go through 10% corrections. They go through 20% corrections quite often, and that is true. But we also made some history on Thursday and Friday of last week, and the question on everyone's mind is, where do we go from here? Where do markets go from here? Where do tariffs go from here? And what does all of that mean for me personally? So my first answer is nobody knows. So don't believe anybody that says they know that this market puke is over, that it's about to turn a corner. It could be. I'm not saying that we aren't there, but nobody has any idea where all this stuff goes next, and markets are going to probably continue to be volatile until we have some certainty around that. Speaking of tariffs and certainty, there was a meeting yesterday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in the White House. There was no resolution on tariffs. Reporters specifically asked the question, did these conversations lead to any progress on tariff negotiations? And the president's answer, President Trump's answer, was something along the lines of, we'll see. This is, the tariffs threat themselves is bringing a lot of people to the negotiating table. We're getting good offers of deals here. So I think that insinuates that there could be a deal done. It wasn't a firm no, but it was also not a firm yes. The president separately said that he had a great call with South Korea and says that China wants to make a deal as well, which is interesting and surprising given what we've heard so far on China has been nothing but pure escalation. So let's go to China first, the massive trading partner, the massive supplier of goods across the world, and where that tit for tat has been going most recently. Initially, tariffs slapped on China in the 50 to 60+% range, depending on which source and what we're talking about here, because there were already existing tariffs in place. There were tariffs regarding fentanyl in place, and then there was an additional tariff put on place for the reciprocal piece of this. China then responded, saying that they were going to be putting tariffs on U.S.-made goods being imported into China at the rate of 30-some-odd%. At which point President Trump said, okay, well, if that goes into place, we'll be looking at 104% tariffs on Chinese-made goods coming into the United States. We've talked about trade threats and tariff threats. This is an accurate description of what a trade war looks like. Granted, none of it's in effect yet, but these are the signs of a trade war between U.S. and China, which I would say nowhere else has it escalated to trade war category yet.
No, this is tit for tat, trade war, whatever sort of vernacular you want to use. This is going to be something that it seems like would be more drawn out. Obviously, we're getting news this morning that perhaps there is momentum for a deal in place, but you'd have to project a little bit more pessimism in terms of these negotiations here. China seems very dead set on being pretty defiant in terms of what they're going to do from a negotiating perspective. They had discussed internally the idea of raising tariffs on farming imports from the United States, banning Hollywood movies, investigating American IP gains. They had gone after DuPont Chemicals, which does about 19% of their revenue in China, with some direct measures. So it doesn't really seem like there would be a tremendous amount of momentum for negotiation, but you can always get surprised here over the last couple of weeks, but this seems to be the most challenging of all the negotiations in place.
China, in response to all this, saying that they will fight to the end after Trump threatened the additional 50% tariffs. And I think the lesson from years of trade negotiations between the Trump administration and China is that China, or at least the lesson for me, a part of the lesson for me, is that China does not have a lot of great options when it comes to slapping American goods with tariffs, because they just don't import all that much stuff from the United States.
1/5 of what we export to them is based on what they export to us. Basically, 20%
of our imports from China are valued at exports to China. Got it. The lessons from them has been, hey, we have other tools in our belt, right? We might not be able to hit you with tariffs, but instead we will dramatically lower our currency. We will devalue our currency and make our goods look even cheaper. We will
go after some of your big companies.
Go after some of your big tech companies and say, hey, Google, Facebook, you're not allowed to do business here, or LinkedIn, we're going to heavily restrict you, Microsoft product. So that's where the interesting stuff to me will happen is, okay, where can they actually hit the United States hard? And then on the other side of that coin is, let's just assume that trade tariffs remain escalated with China. I don't know about the rest of the world, but let's assume for a moment that they do. What that means is that fewer goods coming from China will be going to the United States. I don't believe it means that they're just going to stay in China. They're going to go somewhere else. Right? So Apple, for instance, we'll be covering later, disclosed that they're planning to take a lot more of their U.S. shipments of phones from India, and they're going to take the ones that are done in China and put them somewhere else. They're going to sell them to some other part of the world that doesn't have tariffs on Chinese manufactured goods to temporarily try and get around some of these tariff issues. What that practically means in my mind is there's going to be a whole bunch of dumping of stuff, that this extra capacity that's in China that suddenly floods the rest of the world with all sorts of goods if this stuff stays in place for a while. And so how does the rest of the world behave? Right? If you're Europe, you don't necessarily want a bunch of super cheap Chinese-made products flooding your markets and destroying your car companies, all of your manufacturers in Europe. You might be putting up your own barriers to trade, or if you're quite upset with the Trump administration, saying, hey, okay, we're going to take this opportunity to cozy up to China and find some sort of deal that can be struck while they are on the rails. I genuinely don't know, but this is why it makes all of this so challenging to navigate and so complex in terms of where things turn next.
Yeah, on the supply chain front, I'm not sure. I haven't hosted with you guys for a bit, but I can't emphasize enough, and maybe you guys have spoken to it before, is just the complexities of the supply chains that are in place across China. And this is not something that can just be unwound easily. I mean, you talk to people in all sorts of different industries, whether it's apparel or, technology. The iPhones, for example, Apple sources from 50 different countries to assemble the iPhones. Yes, they're manufactured primarily in China, but there are resources from all over the world that are used in that manufacturing process. So it's not something that can be readily corrected. And even if you were to throw a ton of resources at it, you'd be lucky to pull some of this off the shift in a decade. It just is very complex, so it's not something that can be easily resolved domestically at all.
Let's take a quick break. Markets continue to be focused on tomorrow's trade deadline and what may be announced from the Trump White House before that deadline hits tomorrow. Coming back, we'll start to tackle a few of the questions that we received yesterday and today from you listeners. If you would like to text the show, the number is 617-362-1385. Again, text the show in at 617-362-1385.
Miss any of the show? The Financial Exchange Show podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The breadth of the stock market sell-off in recent days hasn't been seen since the early days of the pandemic. And while it's easy to say don't panic, if you're concerned about your portfolio, given the impact of these tariffs, now's the time to have that conversation. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. If the market correction has you anxious, or worse, rattled, give us a call at 800-393-4001. Let's get together and talk through your financial strategy, evaluate its strengths and weaknesses, and make decisions for the future that are in your best interest. These are challenging times, but we've dealt with them before and are prepared to deal with them again. Our goal is to help you protect the assets that you've worked so hard to attain. You can give us a call at 800-393-4001 and request a no-obligation consultation. That number again is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay All-Inclusive Beach Resort and Casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Wall Street Watch, a full update on the market's performance to date. Weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, and they are the perfect place to take your next vacation. Enjoy spectacular beaches, world-class cuisine, and a wide variety of water sports. Don't miss your chance to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com for more information and to book your trip today. That's visit usvi.com.
Listener question that we got. If trade agreements are reached and tariffs are removed, doesn't that mean that there'll be no incentive to produce or purchase in America since foreign prices will be at or even lower than they were before this all started? In other words, I see how tariffs make overseas goods pricey, driving consumption and with it production to American goods, but removing tariffs, which seems to be our hopes, won't it reverse that strategy entirely? So great question. I think it's good to kind of walk through the dynamics of how all of this works and the potential effects of all of it. But first and foremost, yes. I mean, the answer to your question is if trade agreements are reached, then that by definition does drive down the barriers and incentives to produce those goods in America, at least that one financial incentive. There are plenty of others, right? There are plenty of others where companies make decisions every day to say, hey, because of domestic tax rates or because of the market that we're selling into, we want to have a presence of manufacturing in the United States. Some of those are laws, such as the USMCA, that requires a certain portion of vehicles to be sourced in the United States. Others are different types of incentives. But I think the answer to the question, by and large, is, yeah, if we do reach trade deals with other countries, it is going to remove some of the incentive to produce things domestically in the United States. And so to me, the overarching question is, do we get anything out of those other countries? Right? So let's forget about China for a moment here, because really unclear to me how that develops. But let's take the European Union, which does have tariffs in place on many American goods. And, allegedly, according to reporting, they are seeing a whole bunch of negotiations and, pushing to pass laws to potentially bring down tariffs. And if it doesn't work, then to respond to the United States with tariffs of their own on new American goods. Because, make no mistake, the tariff rates that we have now imposed or announced on all these other countries, in almost every case, far exceed any of the barriers to trade that exist on American products going into those countries.
Sure.
So Israel, we've brought up the example. There are, as of today, virtually no tariffs on American-made goods going into Israel. Mm-hmm. We, according to these tariff announcements, will impose 17% tariffs on goods coming into the United States. I think my other answer on tariffs is better summed up by actually Ronald Reagan. This speech that he gave in, I think, 87 has been going all across the internet, so I'm sure plenty of people have already read it, but I'm just going to quote Reagan for a moment here. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries. This is with the imposition of tariffs. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets. And then, while all this is going on, something even worse occurs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. This was, again, a speech given by President Ronald Reagan in April of 87 on tariffs on Japan and, international trade. And, granted, the world is substantially different than it was 40 years ago when Ronald Reagan was delivering this speech. I don't think he had any idea how China would develop. And I think his attitudes towards trade with China would probably be similar to his attitudes on trade with Japan at the time, which was, hey, this is an unfair agreement and we need to rectify that. However, I do agree on the overall thesis that, hey, if you have trade barriers in place permanently, which I don't know if that's the goal of the Trump administration, but they've certainly talked about it as though it is, because one of the goals was to raise tax revenue. And if you want to raise tax revenue, it has to be permanent, right? Like, you can't just raise the tax revenue one time and say, job well done. My biggest concern is by doing that, you make industries and companies who oftentimes don't have to compete. And I think you can see some of that in the American auto industry, by the way.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I think you already see some of that in the heavily protected American auto industry, where go take a look at price points and technology and a lot of American-made cars today, and they're just not selling overseas. They're selling here fine, but they're not selling overseas because China is able to produce a cheaper car that is, frankly, according to even CEOs of American car companies like Jim Farley, a better product. And so we're just left sitting here saying, hey, we've got these car companies that can sure sell into the U.S. market, but without the protections in place, might not be competitive for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it hit on some really great points. Consumption is how our economy grows. I mean, if you look at GDP, 2/3 of it is tied to U.S. consumption. If you're going to see higher prices, that's going to lead to lower consumption. And there just aren't the mechanics in place to date to really make manufacturing in the United States more cheap than it is in other countries out there. Targeted tariffs I can understand on specific industries that are tied to national security concerns, but others like apparel, I don't see it.
Quick break, full market update next with Wall Street Watch.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bend you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the rules of thumb that gets tossed around is, hey, just withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year and you'll be fine. Is that true still?
It can be, but it also leads to some confusing conversations because that 4% rule, one, is dependent on a very specific asset allocation that was recommended by the person that created it. And two, a lot of those things have changed over time and doesn't really account for the fluctuations that every retiree sees, right? You might retire and not start Social Security right away, in which case your withdrawals could be higher for a period of time.
What about on the other side of the ledger when you look at expenses? A lot of people say, well, I expect my expenses to go down. Maybe I only need 70 to 80% of my pre-retirement income.
Yeah, I mean, this one makes sense, right? Like, you're right now making money. You might be putting money into your 401k, paying FICA taxes that you won't in retirement. But this one especially, I have to say, varies a lot from person to person. That's 70 to 80% of pre-retirement income. And think about it this way, right? Do I still have a mortgage? Might that mortgage get paid off at some point in my retirement? What sort of debts do I have? Am I going to downsize to one car? Are we going to need both? What sort of travel am I planning on? And so that 70 to 80% rule can be a good starting point, but really you need to start with the budget.
Our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001 to request our latest guide, How to Build a Retirement Budget.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, more volatility on Wall Street with markets seeing a strong rally as traders continue to keep a close eye on tariff developments. Yesterday, President Trump said the U.S. would slap an additional 50% tariff on China if the country follows through with its 34% retaliation. In turn, China said it will fight to the end, where its Commerce Ministry said it resolutely opposes Trump's threat of escalating tariffs. At the moment, the Dow is up by 3.6%, nearly 14 points higher. S&P 500 is up 3.9%, or 195 points, and the NASDAQ up 4.3%. or 671 points. The Russell 2000 is up 3.2%. 10-year Treasury yield up by 7 basis points at 4.23%, and crude oil up just over 1% higher, trading at $61.42 a barrel. Healthcare stocks are seeing gains after the Wall Street Journal reported that the Trump administration will increase payment rates for Medicare insurers to 5.06% next year, compared to the 2.23% increase proposed by the Biden administration. Humana shares are up 11%, CVS up by 10%, and United Health up by 7%. Meanwhile, shares in Levi up over 1% after the company reiterated its full-year outlook. However, the jeans maker noted that it excludes any impact from tariffs. Levi's first quarter adjusted earnings were also 52% higher versus a year ago, while its revenue climbed 3% compared to last year. Elsewhere, Broadcom announced a $10 billion share repurchase program authorization through year-end, sending shares in the chip maker up by 8%. Marvell shares up by 9% after the company agreed to sell its auto Ethernet business to Infineon Technologies for $2.5 billion in cash and is expected to close next year. And Walgreens posted better than expected adjusted quarterly earnings, sending that stock up by over 1%. The company withdrew its fiscal 2025 guidance, given it is preparing to go private. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
Many U.S. companies, according to a survey, plan to keep China ties. Wall Street Journal printed this story, and they have some interesting stats in here and stuff to point to. They surveyed 200 American companies in the past couple of years have exposure to China. It's according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. And, interesting statistics here that, hey, while they're concerned about the relationship, they plan to keep these ties. About 70% of 40 members of the U.S. Chamber said they plan to maintain or increase engagements in or with China. Over 60% of a group of legal professionals at corporations that indicated the same intention. 83% of 56 chamber respondents cited China as the top geography of concern. I have to say, I don't know that any of this is relevant anymore. Like,
how so?
Unless they took the survey yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then do it again like Thursday. This stuff has been so fast moving. We did not know what the tariff rate was going to be on Chinese made goods and still don't today. But even the hints of something to the tune of 50% wasn't even announced until last Wednesday. Businesses don't make their plans and respond to surveys that quickly in terms of their change of plans. And so this is interesting. It's compelling to me. We know that there are many U.S. companies with deep, deep ties to Chinese manufacturers in particular. Even whether or not you keep those and whether or not you're making contingency plans is not going to be decided ahead of time right now because you as a business don't know what those tariffs are going to look like.
No, and you could also make the argument, and major companies have, like Walmart and Apple, that they've been trying to diversify away from China. This dates back 7 or 8 years ago in terms of Trump's first term in office, where Apple, like we've talked about before, has been looking to manufacture in India and other countries, but it takes, like we've said before, a long time to unwind. The same thing applies to Walmart. But even with how it seems so clear, not so clear, but it's often so tied to negotiations that, to bring up our listener text before, if you are a company, are you really going to reconsider rerouting your whole manufacturing operation when the fragility of these tariffs and the potential for negotiation? Maybe with China, the argument could be made that we just may be locked in a trade war with them or decouple our economy over a much longer period. That's fair, but it's hard to be a CEO and commit to decouple away from China if you don't know how long you're looking at from a tariff perspective.
Yeah, at least in the short term. I mean, tell me how many car jobs have come back to the United States so far, right? Those tariffs are in place.
Right.
Tariffs on foreign-made cars are in place now. I've heard some rumblings of, shutting down manufacturing plants in Mexico or pausing them, or Volkswagen, for instance, informed all of their Audi dealers that, hey, you're not getting shipments of these cars because we don't want them to enter the United States. We're going to reroute them elsewhere. But none of them so far are saying, hey, we opened up a new manufacturing plant and we're hiring 10,000 people. Like, that stuff may come, but it comes a lot later.
Also, Mike, I don't know if you guys know, who wants those jobs? We have a prime working age in this country, 25 to 54, that population. 82% of them are working that prime population age. And from an unemployment perspective, we sit at about 4.1 or 4.2%. It's a pretty strong job market where I guess you could make the argument perhaps in the Midwest there is some demand for maybe manufacturing to be brought back. But I kind of kick that around in my head to see would there be the substantial demand if that was the route that you took?
I mean, look, I don't know where it all goes. I'm suspect of whether or not you can actually create the jobs. But I do think, to answer the question, are there a bunch of people that are working close to minimum wage at Walmart, Amazon, fulfillment centers, and other places that will either take these jobs that would probably pay a heck of a lot more to manufacture a car given the union presence, or demand a wage increase from Walmart or Amazon to stay there? You're right, unemployment's low, but we do have a lot of people working in kind of crap jobs in this economy. And so, again, where then you have to backfill those quote crap jobs that don't pay a whole lot of wage and
maybe
don't
for
require
auto
skilled
specifically,
labor.
but if you start to broaden out to other sectors, then there's a whole different level of crap job when you're talking about apparel and just Nike factories and stuff like that. I mean, that's a whole different level than the auto manufacturing side.
Market chaos could inflict its own economic damage. We talk about this a lot. The market is not the economy. The economy is not the stock market. But in times like this, I think it's worth reminding ourselves of why the two actually matter. And my answer is fairly simple on this front. Market chaos could inflict its own economic damage because a lot of very wealthy people tie their spending habits to how their portfolio is doing.
Right. And in particular, we've quoted that stat before on the program where the top 10% of Americans by income making $250,000 or more are now responsible for 50% of the spending of the country. And so when you have a higher income population representing 50% of the spending, typically those people who are making $250,000 or more in that top 10 percentile of income, they are reliant upon investing a significant amount of their savings in the market. And so if they see those balances fluctuate, I do think it's a fair argument to make that there could be some hesitancy on spending on that side of things.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we had another really good question text, or it was more of a statement text from a listener about tariffs in the 1980s. We'll cover that, and then a piece from the Wall Street Journal, why you shouldn't check your portfolio right now. We'll be tackling that next here on the Financial Exchange.
If you missed any of today's show, catch up whenever you want on our YouTube page. Find daily show segments and full shows. Just go to youtube.com and search for The Financial Exchange. This is your home for breaking business and financial news. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay All-Inclusive Beach Resort and Casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Leaving assets to your beneficiaries is a critical piece of any estate plan. Cushing & Dolan, the experts in elder law, has written a new guide that may help ensure that your assets are protected for years to come, while helping you avoid unnecessary mistakes during your planning. As an example, the new federal estate tax exemption is nearly $14 million. That could lead to a larger inheritance for your family members, but still raises concerns. There are several strategies in this new guide that will help you learn how to make the right decisions about your distributions at the right time. Cushing & Dolan have been helping New England families for more than 30 years. Let them help you, too. Call 866-848-5699 and get their brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Business and financial news affecting the markets and your wallet. We've got it all straight from Wall Street, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Listener text came in during the last segment. Funny story, I can go back to 1984 when they put tariffs on motorcycles over 750 cc's. Do you know what they did? This would be foreign makers of motorcycles. They made 700s. I always refer to my motorcycle as a tariff baby. This is what happens. And in the 80s, that did happen. It is quite different this time because in the past, generally speaking, when the United States has used tariffs, they've been ultra targeted. This example is a prime one. Hey, we're only going to tariff motorcycles over a certain power. In this instance, it's if you make anything in India, China, Israel, anywhere across the globe, we're going to face a significant tariff for it coming in. And so this type of gaming of the system probably wouldn't work in this space. But the question is, where do they get negotiated? Because, once they start negotiating, then these games start being played where, how can we tinker with our design to make sure we still meet the rules of the USMCA, for example, is a long game of chess that's been played for decades here. Piece in the Wall Street Journal. Here's why you shouldn't check your portfolio right now. That is common advice that is out there. And I'm not sure I agree with it, but I do think for some people it can be the right answer. Where are the pitfalls here, Paul? Like, who should and shouldn't be checking their portfolio right now?
Well, anyone who's, overly nervous about their portfolio, checking it on a daily basis does you really no good and could actually lead to a negative impact where you see the losses continue to pile up and then you make an emotional decision because, this is always intertwined, our world, investing and emotions. It's hard to separate the two. The more that you're subjecting yourself to that type of emotion by watching it frequently, the more likely you are to make a decision one way or another to, cut the bleeding and just say, hey, I'm going to sell out entirely. It sort of negates the long-term assessment that you should have in place on your portfolio.
And make no mistake, yesterday when you had that volatility, there are plenty of people out there, probably some listening right now, who sold everything in their portfolio because they got nervous. And then what's happening today? They're missing out on a 1,200-point rally on the Dow as we speak because you never know when it's getting ugly, when it's going to shift around, and you don't know today if this is the start of something new in terms of a market rally or just a dead cat bounce that's going to erase itself tomorrow. I genuinely have no idea. There's nothing substantial that's changed in terms of the overall narrative today. It's just been, hey, it's been a pretty rough day, and some investors are piling back into stocks. The counterpoint to this is if you have a portfolio that you don't really know how it's allocated and you don't feel prepared for what could be a substantial market drawdown, then not only should you be checking your portfolio, but you should probably be doing something about it.
Right.
And that's the message that I always deliver. And I recognize that not today, but the last several days have been scary times. As I mentioned, the market drawdown that you saw on Thursday and Friday last week was the fourth largest in modern U.S. history. So, we are in somewhat uncharted territory here. And so if you're sitting there evaluating where you are right now and you are nervous, it's not a good enough reason to necessarily make a whole bunch of changes. But if you could use a second opinion on how you are situated, whether or not it makes sense given your age, your personal situation, how much you're planning to spend over the next few years, whether or not you're looking to retire, maybe it's the kids' college money, maybe it's the money for the new home, and you're not sure, hey, is this a buying opportunity or is this something that I need to walk away from? Please let Armstrong Advisory Group be that second opinion. We'll sit down with you. We'll have a full conversation about what your goals look like, how the portfolio is supposed to be used in your scenario and how you envisioned it. And then what we see as the potential pitfalls, overexposure, underexposure, and opportunities that you can take with that money as we continue to work our way through tariff volatility. If you have those types of questions, give us a ring at 800-393-4001. If you're driving right now, you can't pick up the phone, you can also go to armstrongadvisory.com. We've got a little blue Get Started button where you can book a callback right on the website. But that phone number again for the Armstrong Advisory Group for your free second opinion is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Second text from another listener. Why do other countries have tariffs? Because they are advantageous. I've heard U.S. ranchers, farmers, and shrimpers say that tariffs will benefit them. So first things first. There are absolutely large swaths of the American working public that will benefit from tariffs. I am not blind to the idea that they are not, I don't believe that tariffs are universally bad across the board. And yes, there are absolutely industries. The most notable one has been the auto industry, right? Like you've had, I forget the name, who's the head of the U.S., the union for the UAW. I forget his name. He's been all over this, saying this is huge.
Sean Fain.
Sean Fain for American industry and workers. The implementation and the imposition of these tariffs. I would debate somewhat that other countries have tariffs purely because they're advantageous. There are plenty of countries out there where arguably the only reason they have tariffs is because of special interest groups lobbying their elected officials, bribing their elected officials to say, protect these jobs by implementing tariffs. And then you look at those companies 30 years later and they are non-competitive, not in a good place. So I don't think we far too often fall into this habit of assuming that every other country is so organized and efficient and good at managing their economy and we want to mimic that. No, there are plenty of places that have tariffs on goods because they're a corrupt politician that took a bunch of bribes from a certain industry to make sure that that one industry is protected in their country. And to that end, I do think that reciprocal tariffs to address those issues can be a good thing, like we're dealing with China, right? What we're seeing in China, I think, is a reasonable approach. If there are tariffs that I'm not aware of in other certain countries, I do think that, hey, tariffs, if used in that strategic way to bring down barriers to trade and make those countries actually compete with American-made goods, probably a good idea. But I wouldn't also universally say that, hey, countries only have tariffs in place because it's a great economic policy. No, plenty of time. It's because you have a corrupt politician or a politician that, came up in a certain industry and says, hey, I want to make sure that German cars are always manufactured in Germany, and so even though it's a garbage policy, we're going to have huge barriers to trade, and we're going to have German cars might not be the good example here, but there are plenty of reasons that tariffs get implemented outside of pure economic prowess.
Yeah, nothing in the economy is necessarily black or white where there is just a yes or no answer to it. In some instances, like you said, there can be strategic reasons why tariffs can be advantageous, but I wouldn't paint the broad brush that they are always advantageous. I think that if you study most economists and the research that they put out, that typically the more free trade and the more competition that are in industries, the better off the end consumer is because you get the best product at the most efficient price out there. But there certainly are cases where you can make the argument that having those tariffs in place can help a domestic industry or can help national security concerns. I'll be the first to admit that too.
I'm interested to hear about the U.S. ranchers and farmers and such because again, not that I talk to them every day, but the narrative that I've been hearing from the Midwest, from ranchers and farmers is, oh boy, trade war with China. They buy a ton of agricultural goods.
That's why I was wondering when I read that text. I don't know if that's that easy to say that they're advantaged.
That's all I've been hearing from farmers is watch out because if China reciprocates here, we are in deep trouble. Yeah. Quick break. Markets remain strongly in positive territory. We'll have a full recap for you next here on the Financial Exchange. Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Sometimes we know what's next. Other times, it's impossible to know. Life can change in an instant. Don't be caught standing by the next time someone's heart stops. Knowing CPR gives you the ability to act and takes you from bystander to lifesaver. CPR is a life-saving skill. Join the nation of lifesavers today by learning CPR at heart.org/nation. National support for CPR education provided by Elevance Health Foundation.
New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today we're talking about your brand new guide, Todd, how to leave assets to your beneficiaries. Todd, why can't you just add your kids to your accounts or to your house deed?
Well, you can. It's just not a good idea. So people who do that understand with an account, right, you can put a joint name on the account. Now, that doesn't actually complete the gift because you actually have to take the money out and then the gift is complete. But when you set it up, yeah, the asset would avoid probate. But if something happens to the child, it's going to be, available. Half the asset would be subject to the children's creditor. So you don't want that. And secondly, if you only put one kid on the deed, you've likely disinherited the other kids. So it's not really good planning overall. Whereas if you put the house in the kid's name, now you've actually made a completed gift of half the house and would need to file a gift tax return. Number one. Number two, of course, it's exposed to the child's creditors and, yes, divorces. You could find yourself at some point owning half your house with an ex-in-law. Not sure that's a good way to plan. So please, put together trusts. Don't just throw names on deeds or on bank accounts because, as I always like to say, nothing good comes from giving assets away while you're living.
The estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have been helping families like yours for more than 30 years, and they've written a brand new guide called How to Leave Assets to Your Beneficiaries. To get your free copy of this comprehensive guide that will help you determine the best way to leave assets to your family, simply call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning and welcome back to the Financial Exchange. If you're just tuning in, markets have Turn to positive corner so far in Tuesday trading with the Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ all strongly in positive territory. The Dow currently up nearly 1,000 points, 2.6%. S&P 140 points or 2.8%, and the NASDAQ ripping up 510 points or about 3.25% in early trading so far. At last look, interest rates were also moving up on this news, meaning bonds selling off. Yield on the 10-year Treasury sitting at 4.212%. Oil, which had been taking it on the chin recently, not making much of a recovery here. Price of oil sitting right now, West Texas crude at $60.93 a barrel, only up about 1/3% in early trading. Gold, which has been just all over the place, up as well today, about 1.6% to $3,022 an ounce. That seems to have covered it, Paul. Anything that I missed in terms of markets going on today? And by the way, overseas markets, very much to the upside as well from what I briefly saw there across Asia as well on again, just potential rumors of negotiations of these tariffs, which are due to be implemented and enforced tomorrow.
No, nothing further to cover there.
In terms of the effect on 30-year mortgages, as I think that's probably most front and center to people out there today when looking at interest rates, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, according to Mortgage News Daily as of yesterday, still sitting at 6.82%. Really not seeing much of a move downward there on mortgages as we are fully into that spring housing market as we speak here. I will be interested to see what does develop there, specifically around pricing. Again, in the New England area, housing is no real story there because there's still no homes for sale. But when you go take a look at Florida, Texas, other parts of the country, the inventory levels there could lead to, again, not significant price drops, but it wouldn't be surprising to see prices drop here and there. And we'll see what happens with mortgage rates in response to everything regarding tariffs and recession concerns. Wall Street Journal has a piece today. How far does the market have to fall before it's time to buy? Today, apparently, the answer was however much it fell yesterday because markets are rising today. But that's not a terribly satisfactory answer. And so I think it's always useful to kind of take a look at different numbers in terms of, let's just talk about the S&P 500 here for a moment in terms of how pricey is it? So the current price to earnings ratio on the S&P 500 is sitting around 25. Just to give you a sense, back in January, close to market highs, we were sitting at more like 30. Back in 2021, we were closer to 40. And, back during the pre-dot-com bubble, if I can go that far back, according to this data that I have, back in February of 2002, the PE ratio on the S&P 500 was sitting close to 47. So valuations have fallen. They haven't exactly fallen to levels that I think many people consider historical opportunities to buy, right? If we think about the Great Recession, for example, down in 2011, the S&P 500 price to earnings ratio was sitting below 14. We're still close to double that rate. There's a lot of different ways to measure this. Obviously, you can look at price to book value, earnings yield on the S&P 500, but they're all basically telling you similar things here, which are, valuations have gotten more reasonable over the course of the last week, but we're not exactly in
bargain buying territory
or recession territory, right? We're not in the level that prices typically get to in a market that is pure, pre-recession. And so, there's still some, I think, question marks. Hey, what do we see here? You had comments from Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock yesterday, as well as many other CEOs saying, hey, either we're right on the verge of recession, or in Larry Fink's case, saying he thinks we're already in recession as of yesterday, and we just don't know it yet. Look, all of this is heavily dependent on, frankly, what does or does not happen between now and tomorrow on the implementation of these tariffs, April 9th.
Yeah, again, all of this is speculation. No one really knows where the exact bottom is, but I would sort of piggyback on the skepticism from some of the CEOs out there, just because I was having a conversation with a client yesterday. We haven't seen some of the economic data negative prints that people are projecting. We haven't seen negative GDP growth or anything like that. And perhaps that doesn't occur, but you're seeing a lot of negative sentiment out there. And if we were to get economic reports that were to point to weak and slowing economy growth, then perhaps you could see further sell-off. But again, it's all speculation.
We've been mentioning that the economic data that we are getting is not terribly relevant. I still feel that way. On Thursday of this week, we'll get the initial jobless claims, but they are going back a couple of weeks and probably don't tell us anything post-tariff implementation. So we've got to wait a few weeks before initial jobless claims start to signify much of anything. We will get a CPI read on Thursday. That would normally be probably the only thing we're talking about. It's also going to be the second day of tariff implementation on reciprocal tariffs. So pretty irrelevant in terms of the read that we get on CPI. I think the only thing it might matter for is the direction that Jay Powell takes this economy going forward, because he was asked on Friday of last week, hey, tariff implementation, recession concerns, clearly market pressure. Where does the Fed go next? And his answer was nowhere for now, because the risk to inflation is just too high with implementation of tariffs. So we will see if that sets anything up. Friday we get the producer price index, but I really, Chuck mentioned this yesterday or maybe last week on the program, and it's probably going to be at the earliest late April, more like May or June time.
That's what I was projecting, May or June, before you even put a grain of salt into any of the reports. I mean, what's the point of covering it with the seismic changes that we've seen on a policy front? It's hard to dive too much into the details with what's looming ahead.
This is Paul's pitch to not do radio for the next 2 months. I think that's what I'm hearing right now.
No, I'm
planning on taking a vacation, and this is my back end way of getting into that.
I'm always happy to be in the seat.
In any case, that's kind of what we are staring down here over the next few days here. Markets very much in positive reaction mood to the even just semblance of hints of negotiations is my takeaway. But I think the other key message here, folks, is don't try and attribute too much to single-day moves in the stock market. And yesterday was the perfect lesson in that. We had markets that I think at one point were up something like 4% off of Friday's close. It lasted for some 15 minutes. We're not seeing that today. Markets have been in positive territory since the open, up over about 2%. But we have given up a lot of it just in the last 15 minutes of my speaking. But I think the key message is if you try and attribute too much to the day-to-day moves of this news story or that news story, one, those news stories can be refuted by the White House and told that they're fake news, in which case, okay, I just bought into a fake news story that was nothing burger. The other piece would be this stuff, sometimes markets just go up. Sometimes they just go down. There's not always a story to count towards all that, and it's not always a story that's going to last. The statistic that I hate because of how painful it was, but love in terms of an example here, the NASDAQ during the dot-com bust had, I think, 5 separate rallies of 10% or more during the overall downturn on its way to bottoming. So these things can give you very false signals in short time frames, and it's important to take that longer-term view. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, going to have some trivia. Again, if you have questions about markets, reaction, tariffs, or anything else to that end, you can text the show at 617-362-1385. But again, trivia coming up right next.
There's only one show that follows Wall Street's continued volatility. Keep it here all morning long on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. It's easy to say that you're simply leaving your assets to your children, but without proper beneficiary planning, it can cause significant problems. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Don't leave your future or your children's future to chance. Call 866-848-5699 or request it online from our website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Retirement planning is complicated enough without having a formal budget to help you maintain your lifestyle during your later years. This is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Our new guide called How to Build a Retirement Budget was written specifically for this purpose. Our goal is to help take your financial concerns out of your retirement years. There are numerous issues to deal with when creating a retirement budget. Everything from understanding where your income will come from, to setting up a proper withdrawal strategy, to being able to remain flexible as market conditions change. This new guide offers structural guidance that may alleviate the pressures of creating your budget. You can request your copy right now by calling 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide today. Once again, that number, 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay All-Inclusive Beach Resort and Casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
The Financial Exchange is now available on your Alexa smart speaker. Ask to play the Financial Exchange and catch up on anything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is proud of our partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's 5K is Saturday, November 8th. And registration is now open. The race has sold out each of the past 4 years, and slots will fill up quickly, so don't delay. Visit dav5k.boston today and reserve your spot or join our team here at the Financial Exchange by registering under Team TFE. That's Saturday, November 8th for this year's DAV 5K. Sign up now at dav5k.boston. Time for trivia here on the Financial Exchange, and on this day, back in 1973, famed artist Pablo Picasso passed away at the age of 91. Picasso's long artistic career included many styles, including his early blue and rose periods before developing Cubism in 1909. Trivia question today: what country is Picasso from? Once again, what country is Picasso from? Be the fourth person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you get a brand new Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Once again, the fourth correct response to text us at 617-362-1385 will get that T-shirt. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
All the while, behind the scenes with everything tariff-related, there are also competing tax bills making their way through the Senate and the House. As a reminder, they are passing these tax bills, or attempting to, through the process of budget reconciliation. Why they need to do that is because Republicans don't have large enough majorities in either the House or the Senate to pass these bills without facing all sorts of issues. And in the Senate, in order to pass a bill through without facing, what is that process by which you just stand there and delay a bill?
Filibuster?
Yep, that one. Thank you. You need 60 votes. They don't have it in the House. They only have a very slim majority of 220 to 213. And look, these bills are controversial even among Republicans. There are so many competing interests here, but for the moment, the main piece of this that seems to be quite controversial is just how much these bills would run up the deficit further over the course of the next decade. Now, most Republicans seem to be on board with the idea that, hey, running up the deficit by a couple $1 trillion for these tax bills over the next 10 years is reasonable because there might be enough business activity or tariffs to offset some of that. Facts aren't in evidence in that, but they've justified that to say, hey, look, if we have the model here where it runs up the deficit by an extra $2 trillion over the next 10 years, that's probably okay because we'll see all this new revenue from business activity and wages and all these good things. Again, facts are not in evidence on that, but that is the message that they've been sending. The problem is that in these bills, there's quite a bit of divide as to what's acceptable. So the House version, which is passed in late February, did call for big tax cuts totaling somewhere in the range of $4 trillion. However, it also called for spending cuts of $1.5 trillion over a decade, largely from Medicaid. The Senate package that was passed, or that's being worked through, I don't actually know if it's passed, looks at those same $4 trillion in tax revenues. Actually, it's more like $5 trillion in tax cuts in the Senate version. Only $4 billion in spending cuts over the course of a decade. That is very far away. Those two bills are, $4 billion versus $4 trillion $4 billion versus, what do we say, $1.5 trillion in cuts is a very significant divergence here. And so I suspect it still gets done. The method here has typically been you get a call from the president that says either work through this bill or I'm going to run somebody against you in the next election and you're not going to be terribly happy. And that, that got Johnson the House vote, the Speaker vote, and it's worked generally pretty well to get House Republicans in line. But so far, there's been some pretty harsh words from House Republicans on the idea of these tax packages and what it actually would mean for deficits. And, frankly, I think they, with that slim of a majority, these House Republicans are going to have questions to answer when they go back to their districts and try and win those close races. And going to them and saying, hey, I just increased deficits by another $2-3 trillion is going to be tough. Representative Andy Olis from Tennessee, for example, was quoted saying, "Make no mistake, the Senate budget resolution is everything but America first." So I don't know how close these are to actually getting done. Oftentimes you don't really know until they are passed. I also don't see a lot of reporting on what the priorities are going to look like. We've seen everything from the SALT cap removal to
no tax on tips.
No tax on tips, Social Security changes, overtime changes, increasing the top marginal tax bracket. Like, I genuinely am not entirely certain where all this goes. But the piece to me that both the House and the Senate seem to be working through or focusing on is the Medicaid side of things. And I guess I want to think about that as it affects our lives in the financial advisory world for a moment here, Paul, because look, most people with assets don't interact with Medicaid much at all. But when you talk about, actually, let me ask you this question, see if you can get on the same page with me. When you think about the average American retiree, what would you consider to be the biggest threat, while quite unlikely, but the biggest threat to the success of their financial strategy when they retire?
A long nursing home stay.
Yeah. So long-term care expenses in this country, and especially here in the Northeast, are just outrageous. If you're not familiar, the cost of a full-blown nursing home in New England, I've seen anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 a month. I've seen higher than that too, but I know somebody personally who's in one in southern New Hampshire, and they're shelling out $15,000 a month for nursing home care. Why that is, at least in part, that $15,000 I don't think really represents the cost of delivering that care every month. But the problem for these nursing home facilities is that a large portion of the residents, on average, are on Medicaid.
Right.
And Medicaid does not reimburse $15,000 a month. They reimburse substantially lower than that. I've just been kind of pondering what this could mean, because the $1.5 trillion in spending cuts, if most of them are concentrated in Medicaid, for an example, in 2023, the United States budget accounted about $610 billion went to Medicaid. So $6.1 trillion over a decade if we extend out 2023. $1.5 trillion, that'd be like a quarter of that budget. I would assume that there are cuts to all sorts of programs in that case, including the nursing home stays. And so logically, just following that through all the way to its logical end, I would think what happens is people who are in nursing homes on Medicaid stay there, but Medicaid reimburses even less. And therefore, the cost of a nursing home for the person who can afford to private pay goes higher to account for that loss in subsidized cost.
Yeah, or there's
a broken system. I'm not saying this is good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying that this is a system that does not function terribly well.
Or there's
today.
a tremendous shakeup in senior housing where there isn't as much widespread care for those people because they just are unwilling to continue to accept the subsidized Medicaid payments.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, right, the other response would be the nursing homes going out of business.
Or creating a split of like, hey, we're only going to take people who
private
can
pay.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Yeah, I genuinely don't, again, this is very early on, but the Medicaid cuts in particular, they've been pretty popular. Right, among House and Senate Republicans. So I think that is probably a piece of this overall pie. And if it happens, what are the tax cuts? Those are the things that are going to be most important to the markets and the economy. But just one thing that we've been seeing over and over again in our job as financial advisors that I'm curious as to how it all plays out in the long-term care insurance industry space too. Like, how does that get affected by all of this is very, very interesting too. Let's take a quick break. Markets so far holding on to their gains for the day. We'll have the trivia winner when we come back, and then want to talk about the United States as a safe haven. Does that get shaken as a result of any of the talks of tariffs here? That's next on the Financial Exchange.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visitusvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divi Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line And now it's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Hi, I'm Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and soldiers' homes and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for both single veterans and those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled How to Build a Retirement Budget. Mike, one of the issues that we've seen for retirees in the last several years is significantly higher home insurance premiums and property taxes going up as well. How do people attempt to navigate this but still stay within the budget they had laid out for themselves?
Yeah, look, the cost of home ownership, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone. Whether you are buying a home for the first time or you are just seeing those insurance and tax rates that you mentioned going up, it is really impossible to avoid. And I think that's where that flexibility in the budget comes in and needs to be recognized. Because, for instance, you might have factored in a huge cost savings by moving to Florida a decade ago.
Sure.
A lot of that has been eaten up over the course of the last several years. And so you have to have a budget that can evolve with your lifestyle over time.
How often do you review that budget?
You know, I think it's important to at least get a grasp on it once a year. And you can really see costs fluctuate a lot during those periods of time. But those flexibility points are really important because you have to account for inflation, and different things inflate at different rates. So, for example, you might see that your costs of health care rise dramatically in your later years, both because you need more of it and because healthcare costs inflate faster than other types of costs. And you have to build those into the budget, even though you might be paying nothing for them today.
This month, our guide is titled How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. The guide again is How to Build a Retirement Budget, and the number to call is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia question today was, what country is Picasso from? That would be Spain. Bruce from Old Orchard Beach is our winner today, taking home a brand new Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Congrats to Bruce, and we play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Shaking faith in U.S. safe havens is a dangerous game. It's a opinion piece from Jonathan Levine from Bloomberg today. And I want to talk about the importance of U.S. debt in particular as a safe haven and what that means in particular. He gives a few examples, but he's absolutely right that the United States has for a very long time been a safe haven during times of uncertainty. So when financial crises hit, international investors, but investors of all sorts, pour into the United States Treasury market because it is A, highly liquid because we issue so much debt in this country because we've been running deficits since the Clinton era, and B, because we always pay our debts. Those two features really drive people towards that safety move when things get hairy. And you saw that Thursday and Friday last week too, right? Yep. You saw the yield on treasuries rocket down. The price on treasuries move up because people were moving for that safe haven. Let's not get into whether or not these tariff talks are potentially going to weaken that position as a safe haven yet, but let's talk about why that's so critically important here, Paul. Like, what does that give us in terms of a special advantage to be seen as the global currency, the currency to trade in, and the place to flee to when things get rough?
It allows for a couple things. I mean, one is for our continued ability to just print money sort of endlessly here to continue to raise debt, and also to be able to raise that debt at a low interest rate. I mean, if Greece were to try to go and do this and raise the type of debt that we are looking to raise, obviously I'm pointing that out as a far extreme to the other end, they would be unable to do it. And in times of war and strife, the ability to raise money cheaply is a huge advantage. And you pair that together with military strength and the ability to continue to raise more capital, it positions you well from a global perspective to have those two things going hand in hand.
Now, on the surface, tariffs don't really directly have anything to do with that, right?
No.
I mean, on the surface, you take a look at that and, what would weaken the U.S. as a safe haven asset, the Treasury as a U.S. safe haven asset? Well, if Congress actually defaults on treasuries, as they've threatened to do a couple of times, like that would be catastrophic potentially if they said, oh yeah, we're going to not pay the interest or not pay the principal back on these specific loans or any portion of them. That would definitely call into question the idea of the U.S. as a safe haven asset, and we have that debate every couple of years when we reach the spending limits, and so far, universally, Congress has done what I think is the smart thing and continued to pay the interest on those debts. But the other piece is kind of technical. So we've talked about this a little bit, but trade imbalances. I just want to talk about that for a moment. And, China is a huge one, right? We buy way more stuff from China
than they
buy from us. So massive trade imbalance. And what that technically means is a whole bunch of dollars going over to the Chinese market, U.S. dollars going to China, and then China decides, what do we do with those? On a limited basis, Chinese companies go and buy stuff from American manufacturers, farmers, things along those lines. They go buy some stuff, but clearly not a lot of it. By and large, they sit on a whole bunch of U.S. treasuries. What that in turn does is make it cheaper for us to borrow because the Chinese are net buyers of United States treasuries. And so this is one of those potential downstream impacts that if you go and do tariffs on one country here or there, probably has no effect. But if you roll out tariffs on all countries at the same time and dramatically reduce the number of dollars going from U.S. households over to those other countries, and maybe you are, or maybe you're not paired with a financial crisis at the same time, there will be a smaller group of buyers of that U.S. government debt. Now, again, this is where it gets so complicated. Does it get offset by American domestic buyers of that debt because they are now, selling goods to the domestic market? Do some of those jobs go from China to Canada and Mexico instead, and therefore the net purchases stay the same? I don't know. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about this threat to the safe haven status. I don't think there's much of a threat to, hey, U.S. isn't going to pay you back. There is a threat to, hey, there's just going to be fewer dollars floating around there to go and buy this stuff if tariffs stay in place.
Yeah, and the more debt you run up to, also it becomes reputational based too, Mike. I mean, ultimately, if the reputation for the U.S. to take on too much debt and not be able to pay it back, then you're going to further increase interest rates, and that just makes the cycle more and more challenging.
Oh, yeah.
You have to borrow at higher rates of interest.
Annual deficits being run at 6-7% of GDP is a terrible idea in the best of times, and we shouldn't do it. But the only reason we've been able to do it is because of the safe haven status, and losing that would be extraordinarily problematic.
Oh, that's me.
Hi, Tucker.
Hi there. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visit usvi.com/promotions where you'll find the details about all these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divvy Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visit usvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visit usvi.com/promotions.
The Fed must resist repeating past mistakes. It's another week, so Mohamed El-Arian is out there producing another piece criticizing the Federal Reserve and the poor job that they've done in his opinion. But his piece here is very clearly it's not a shot across the bow because he has no control over the Fed, but it's another criticism of what the Fed did back in 2021 and 2022, which was, in his view, move far too slowly to control inflation. And so his message this time is, hey, Jay, hey, Federal Reserve, I'm sure you're nervous about these tariffs and the risk of recession and potentially rising unemployment. But don't be tempted to cut interest rates at the same time that you're going to have the application of tariffs and potentially higher inflation, lower tax rates. There are a lot of open questions that could dramatically move the story on both inflation and employment over the next just few weeks.
Right?
Like forget about the next year or several months. Like, we have the broad implementation of tariffs going in place tomorrow. We have the Senate and the House working through a tax bill. We have the negotiation of potential tariff deals being struck between certain countries and the United States. I don't know how the Federal Reserve would be able to digest all this. I suspect that their answer is going to be
wait and see.
Wait and see, which is exactly what I would do, which probably does not make the president terribly happy. On Friday of last week, he was putting out there that the Fed should be cutting immediately. In any case, the Fed funds rate right now sits at 4.25% to 4.5%. The next meeting doesn't occur till May 7th, so they do have some time here to figure all of this out. There's only about a 1 in 3 chance right now, a little bit less than a 1 in 3 chance that the Fed actually cuts those rates at that next meeting. So we will see how it plays out, and we'll get some more commentary from Fed officials in terms of how they are thinking about the risk of recessions on the economy over the course of the next few weeks.
What a fun job.
Yeah, no, not great, Bob. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, a bit of stack roulette here on the Financial Exchange.
The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The breadth of the stock market sell-off in recent days hasn't been seen since the early days of the pandemic. And while it's easy to say don't panic, if you're concerned about your portfolio, given the impact of these tariffs, now's the time to have that conversation. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. If the market correction has you anxious, or worse, rattled, give us a call at 800-393-4001. Let's get together and talk through your financial strategy, evaluate its strengths and weaknesses, and make decisions for the future that are in your best interest. These are challenging times, but we've dealt with them before and are prepared to deal with them again. Our goal is to help you protect the assets that you've worked so hard to attain. You can give us a call at 800-393-4001 and request a no-obligation consultation. That number again is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, the United States Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next vacation. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway, a long weekend with friends, or a family vacation, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John have everything you need to enjoy that special time away from home. Take advantage of a variety of incredible promotions that are available right now. Go to visit usvi.com/promotions, where you'll find the details about all of these amazing experiences, including a stay at the Divvy Carina Bay all-inclusive beach resort and casino on St. Croix. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Don't miss your chance to enjoy America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Head to visitusvi.com/promotions for more information and to book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com/promotions. It's easy to say that you're simply leaving your assets to your children, but without proper beneficiary planning, it can cause significant problems. Call Cushing & Dolan at 866-848-5699 and get their new guide called How to Leave Assets to Beneficiaries. Don't leave your future or your children's future to chance. Call 866-848-5699 or request it online from our website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bend you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, Paul. Last 3 days, all we've talked about has been tariffs. What do you have for us for Stack Roulette? More tariff talk?
You know what I was thinking going into segments? We didn't talk about a single company in this show at all. Yeah.
I think I mentioned Apple at one point.
I was eating an apple. Maybe that was
that's what it was. Yep, never mind. Sorry.
What I've got is fake job seekers are flooding U.S. companies that are hiring for remote positions, tech CEO says. So basically what's going on here is there are numerous attempts out there from remote jobs for tech positions to be influxed with resumes of fake people out there who are looking to become hired by the particular company, and it's not an employee. This is not any person that's tied to it, but it's using generative AI to have someone that would come for a fake job candidate, become hired within a company, and then try to infiltrate that company and install malware on their systems through this process. So there was an example here where a startup called Prindrop Security posted a recent job opening. One candidate stood out, which was a Russian coder named Ivan, of course, who had all the right qualifications for a senior engineering role. But when they went to do the interview, they noticed that his facial expressions were slightly out of sync with his words during a remote interview. What they were doing is using generative AI to develop this fake candidate who was using deepfake software and other tools to get a bid to get hired by this tech company out there. So another thing to worry about is, fighting off not only hackers and cybersecurity concerns, but having someone infiltrate your company who is not actually a person, but someone trying to infiltrate it for cybersecurity concerns.
Man, maybe AI should just do all of our jobs. Got to deal with this garbage now on top of it. Where I genuinely think we're heading with some of this stuff is to a point where companies and individuals just entirely stop trusting what they see on parts of the internet. Like, I got to be honest. Like, if I'm conducting an interview with somebody these days, I'm more than willing to do it via Zoom. But if I don't meet that person in person, I'm going to be checking all sorts of references. I'm going to be doing social media background checks. I'm going to be doing a lot of things that I wouldn't have done for a candidate that came in person.
Wouldn't it be interesting if the pendulum just swung where they just required that it had to be in-person meetings, going forward, because there's so many of these scam attempts that it just reverts back the other way that, no, I need to see you in person, Mike, to believe that you are.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting close to that. I think about Fidelity, actually. Fidelity Investments has a security system in place where you can use your voice as your password.
Right.
And so you can, call up, and rather than needing to type something into the, to your dial phone and corresponding letters to the digits or anything like that, it's just they have you repeat a few phrases and they verify your intonation and voice against, previous recordings, and they say, oh, this person's verified. That technology cannot last much longer.
Right. You'd be much better with security questions that only you would know.
But especially for, if somebody really wanted, I'm guessing they could get an AI system pretty well trained on my voice, because
yours or mine. I mean, just go to all the
hours
recordings.
Upon hours of. Well, Tucker does it every show. You can quote me on that. I don't know.
Quote me on that.
So the ability for somebody to imitate my voice, I just really wonder that tech group within such a massive organization like Fidelity, how they are approaching something like this. And maybe there's something on the technological side that they have that makes that impossible. But
does it pair with the text code multi-factor?
I'm sure if you're doing certain risky transactions, it does.
Right.
But for this, it was a general question.
Oh yeah, sure.
Give me my account balance and some stuff like that. And no, there's nothing like that. So yeah, interesting stuff here. Another text came in earlier. You mentioned that even given all the volatility, the markets lately, it might not be considered low enough to buy yet. That was a piece from the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was. My question is, can you explain buy the dip? I currently contribute bi-weekly to my 401k, and are my contributions considered buying the dip? I think is what they meant to say in the text. So I guess the term buy the dip, there's no definition to it. It is the general idea that investors pile into stocks when they go down, and that mentality of wait till it goes down and then buy the dip, because historically, no matter how ugly it's gotten, whether it's Great Depression or Great Recession with stocks off 55% from their highs, they've always eventually rebounded. The problem is oftentimes you buy the dip when it's down 10 and it continues down another 40, and you're left feeling rather foolish. Your actions on the 401k, what I love about the features of a 401k is when you are contributing money through a payroll provider like that, you typically designate a certain percentage of your salary.
Mm-hmm.
And so long as your salary is fixed, what you're doing is you're buying a certain dollar amount into a account every 2 weeks or whatever your payroll is. And so if you think about how that happens, your dollar amount is fixed. So if the markets go down, you are buying fewer shares. If the markets go up, assuming you don't change your investment lineup in there, you are buying fewer shares. So that's dollar cost averaging. It's not buying the dip necessarily.
Right.
Buying the dip would be saying, hey, I'm jacking up my 401k contributions to front load them here because the markets are down. But that's one of the great features of a 401k is it kind of automatically takes care of that for you by saying, hey, if markets are cheaper, I'm going to buy more shares. If they're more expensive, I'm going to buy fewer. And manages that way.
Yeah, dollar cost averaging is great because you're not subject to market timing. It's not like a situation where you inherit, a couple $100,000 and you have to make a pointed purchase to invest fully in the market. It is more advantageous. I mean, it's great to be in that position in the first place, but it's more advantageous if you can create a recurring monthly savings plan. A 401k is an example of that, or a regular investment account, putting in $500 a month every month. That way, if you pick the top of the market and it plunges from there, okay, you only committed your first $500 there, but then you're buying all the way down. So that tends to be a little bit more appealing for building wealth. And even Warren Buffett will echo that. Invest in the S&P 500, but continue to buy in over time because there is the chance out there that you invest at the wrong time and it can take longer to show a positive return out than that, depending when you buy in.
Yep. So buying the dip is a form of market timing in some ways. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a good strategy, but that's
part of it is valuation based too. We talked about that a little bit. People will look for, are you buying things cheaply? And there are multiple different ways to look at it. No one is perfect, whether it's price to earnings ratio.
And be careful about those two things right now too, because any sort of measure of valuation is at least part reliant on what the company is forecasting or currently doing for earnings.
Right.
And when you have something like tariffs being implemented that could literally entirely reshape your earnings projection, those measures of price to earnings are by default very unknown right now, right? Like Apple is the example I keep going back to, but their earnings over the most recent quarter compared to what those would look like if they faced 100% tariffs on iPhones coming from China or having to relocate all that to India or the United States, who knows what those earnings are going to look like over the next 12 months. Those projections are out the window at the moment until they get some certainty around tariffs. Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, all in positive territory here as we head towards the 12 o'clock hour. Dow currently up 885 points, 2.33%. S&P 112, 2.25%. And the NASDAQ up 364 points or 2.33 of a percentage point. We'll be right back at it tomorrow on the actual effective date of these announced tariffs. Stay tuned, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back at it in 22 hours.